All right, welcome to the Universal Language of Love. This is Abby Gooch and Alyssa here interviewing Angie, and Angie is so awesome. We are so excited. We actually invited her to come back yet again because she's so incredible. And I just love her energy. Literally, when I connected with her, I felt she does something with crystals. Like it's Crystal Array, I think it's her company, and I just feel illuminated by it. She has really transformed my life personally. So I just really recommend her as a guide and a mentor and somebody who I just really trust and has such a pure connection. So I feel really honored to have her on the show so we can ask her heart some questions about how she's gotten where she is and just to help inspire us all to really live. So Angie, do you want to formally introduce yourself?
Sure.
More
Um,
that.
Goodness, I wear a lot of hats. I've been well trained by spirit. So I'm a crystallogist. That means I work with crystals in circuitry to heal, advance people's consciousness, and assist them mind, body, and spirit. I'm an ordained reverend. I'm a healer. I'm a psychic surgeon. I'm a manufacturer of orgone generators and carbon 60 oils. So I have a small lab as well. And I'm the founder of a mystery school, and I teach mystery school tradition practices, which is pretty vast, actually. There's a lot included in that. What else? Oh, I'm a Reiki master too. So
That's awesome.
I think I covered most of it.
So,
Very accomplished.
Yeah. So how did you find your path to love, to that being the answer and just coming back to that?
I had a spontaneous awakening. I was very active in the church. I was a Methodist. Both my parents are actually ministers under the Methodist tradition. And, I thought I was on the path. And December 9th, 2011, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a cosmic 2x4. And within 2 hours of that, the Kundalini rose, which I thought was lightning coming out of the ground. I did not understand what happened to me. It blew my brain out. It was probably 30 minutes before thoughts could even form. And then that happened again the following day at the exact same time again. It was quite interesting. And when that settled a little bit, I had a tremendous amount of psychic abilities and energy awareness, which I would spend months trying to sort out and understand what had happened. So my husband came home from work to a very, very changed woman, and I was seeing multidimensionally. He worked in a high security clearance building. It didn't even have windows on it, and I could literally see through the walls and describe his desk and his office mates to him.
Wow.
And I'd be talking with somebody on the phone and I could see where they were and what position they were in. And so I Googled that and learned that what I was doing was remote viewing, right? And then I learned that all these other potential possibilities of where doorways and stuff were and where my furniture was arranged was alternate realities. And so the first 2 months of my awakening, I was covered with bruises all over the place from just slamming into walls and slamming into furniture because there was too many options. And I, I couldn't tell which one was the reality I was in. It was pretty dramatic. And at the time when it happened, I was on the phone with someone in a business call, and I ended up quantumly entangled with them. And that took almost 9 months to sort out. We could taste the food each other was eating. We could taste, we could feel each other's moods and just everything. It was very confusing because it was like there was another person in my body, and that person was experiencing it too. And then I went through all the chakras opening, which was just as radical as could be. And I didn't know that's what it was either. So I was going to doctors and having tests done. And my husband and I were doing psychologicals and IQ tests on me. We had no paradigm to fit a spontaneous awakening into. And after about 3 months, we decided, we finally found some stuff on the internet that my symptomology matched up completely to the awakening of consciousness. And he took his wedding ring off and laid it on the dining room table and said, from the best I can understand, this is what the saints and sages and mystics are talking about. This is your time to go out in the world and figure this out for us 9-to-5 smucks. That was the end of my 20-year marriage and my life in Hawaii. And I left, and I went under training with spirit. So I spent the next, well, I guess I'm still under training, but essentially I have a doctorate at this point.
Wow.
So,
Hands-on
so
learning.
yeah, I'm sorry?
Hands-on learning, practical learning, just
Lots and lots of it. And I was very stubborn, and the ego had not surrendered yet. It was still fighting for its life against this voice in the head. And so I still had to go through the dark night of the soul and do all that shedding of former constructs and belief systems and everything I thought I knew about reality. And fortunately, I'm a tough cookie, and I did psychologically survive it all, but I don't recommend it. If you're going to have an awakening, try to do it, gently over the years. Don't do the cosmic 2x4 upside your head.
So funny. So how did you discover the difference between you said the thoughts in your head and actually hearing spirit?
Because I would be thinking a thought, and a voice would speak over that thought. And I can't do that. Can you do that? Can you do like a ventriloquist
I hear spirit, so yeah,
act in your head? Right. I mean, if you're thinking a thought and there's suddenly another voice that's overlaying that or underlaying that you hear simultaneously, that's not something we can actually mimic. And so I had to get curious. What is this? And eventually I learned the observer state, which is an in-between state where you can watch the thinking mind, right? And so that's when I really understood that the ego, the personality, is not the totality of the self. And I had truly thought, oh, this is Angie. These are my thoughts. This is my body. This is my domain, right? Yeah, I no, we're mind, body, and spirit. And until that point, I had not directly heard from the spirit part of this unit. And, now we're a committee, and ego is earth guidance only. But there's a whole lot of overlapping realities and realms that exist here on earth. And, that's where spirit or the soul comes in so strongly and is needed so much. As soon as we have an expanded reality or expanded sense of consciousness, we need a navigation system for that. And that's spirit's realm. Spirit exists as ether and understands that spirit is pure energy, as is consciousness itself, which is why it's possible to remote view. And that's why it's possible to travel out of body. And I don't mean astral travel at night. I mean drop into meditation and go somewhere. It's because consciousness itself is non-local. We think prior to awakening, no, it's right here. I'm right here. I'm not somewhere else. But even as a healer, when we look at people that are like in a coma, there's somewhere around their field a light that's glowing. And that is their consciousness. That's their spirit, their higher self. It is non-local. And when we sleep at night, the sleep is for the mind and it is for the body. The consciousness itself is an eternal construct that never needs to sleep. And so it goes out and about and says hi to your friends. And
yeah, it does. It's infinite. Totally. So that really is like the language of love that we like to talk about on the show, is like how your consciousness of love is interacting with the world. For you, it's all the realms, and all of us really, it's constantly interacting at those higher levels as well. But to stay in that place of the heart center and our ability to love and be loved, right, in each moment, to have that connection to all of life and each other. So I'd love for you to share more about that.
that's actually a really difficult thing to do. It takes effort. I mean, I suppose there's some people it's maybe quite natural for, but they're rarities. Because the human brain is biologically constructed to keep the body safe. And so its kind of prime directive is to look out for things to be alarmed or scared about. Now, nowadays in modern culture, we don't have to outrun, the saber-toothed tiger or the cave bear, but the brain is still developed the same way, and it's still looking for thought. It's still looking for potential threats. Is that person diminishing me? Is that person being disrespectful? Is this law going to alter me? And that's fed um, by government newscasters and advertisers because fear sells. It sells big time. Are you not pretty enough? Are you not, sexually virile enough? Maybe that little pain right there in your knee can't be solved by aspirin. You should take this really complicated drug with this huge list of side effects. Yeah, that'll work. I mean, we're really sold on fear. Because biologically our brain is wired to keenly watch for things to keep us safe with. So we have this vigilant operating system, and the only way to really get it to rest and stop thinking is through some very strong practices. Yoga is a gentle entry, qigong, meditation. But when we can get the brain calmed down and quiet, there is a whole nother life that we are capable of and a whole nother level of existence and perception. And that part is very directly connected to the heart. And it is from that state of consciousness that we discover what we really are. And what we really are is love. And we come from, like, the very substructure of the universe itself is love. Everything that exists, it came from the Creator out of love. We're all born out of love. But we do have to keep that, we do have to learn how to connect with that in a really kind of a very divine way, because the human mind has certain capabilities to love things. I love these earrings. But that's not what we're talking about.
Like a passion for. Huh. Alyssa, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, but I just want to say I love your outfit, actually. I like the little sparkles on your...
Oh, thank you.
That is sweet.
But I did have a question, like, so when you're hearing this consciousness, is that the same as intuition, or is that something different? Like, does that tie in as well when you're listening to your intuition or your inner wisdom?
Oh, that's a great question. So I had intuition prior to awakening. There would just be this sudden gripping gut feeling, right? Of don't turn down that alley. Don't go there. Look out for that person, right? Which is gut intuition. And that's a very rudimentary form of higher levels of intuition, or higher levels. I mean, to me, intuition is something that kind of comes unbidden and you don't even know it. You just suddenly get this charge around doing or not doing something, right? But there's a level of consciousness where there's tool sets where you can just go get the information. I was on an interview earlier today, and callers were calling in and just asking all kinds of random questions, right? And so I'm having to connect my energy to theirs, to their subconscious or their higher self, to get the answers, because Angie doesn't know, right? Or I'm having to, remote view something, or, I'm having to use these tool sets to get the information. So what happens is when we learn to quiet the mind and make the space, it is in that space that we can use tool sets. It's that space that we can hear the greater knowledge that's out there, which the Akashic surrounds us. It's all around us. The atoms in the air hold the records of everything that's ever happened to that atom in that space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we can activate our heart and connect our energy to a perceived other, ultimately we're all one being. We're like an aspen grove. We're all little trees, but we're all the grove, right? It's a single aspen. That knowledge is there, and that's our gift of love that we can give to another, is help them see that which they can't see right now.
That's beautiful. That's like the psychic or intuitive insight that you see, right? With your third eye, you can help see for them. but they can't see, or they may be able to see actually if they open their third eye. Absolutely.
I think we all have the capacity for it, and that intuition, that gut instinct, that's the beginning, but that can be trained, and it can be trained to very high levels. You would be shocked and amazed what can actually happen. So
is it almost like a door opening to, when you get to the subconsciousness or consciousness?
That's a great way to put it. Like, people come to me and, they're like, I want to whatever have an ayahuasca experience because I think it will open things. And it does. It's like a window. But the awakening of consciousness is the door that you walk through, right?
Yeah.
So one is a preview, and there's a gentleman the other night. I don't know why. I guess I just felt goofy, and he lets me do things to him, so it works out. And I know a particular trick where I can just blow on a person, and then they will suddenly start seeing tracers and psychedelic and spiritual, other dimensional information. And I didn't tell him what I was going to do. I just did it. so, walking through that door, actually consciously making the decision, instead of just a window view through, a psychedelic or something. All of our pineal glands produce DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, right? And it's deeply associated with spiritual experience and visionary experience. So we don't even need an outside source. We have it. We produce our own. And
I agree. I mean, I've been asked so many times to do the ayahuasca thing, and I'm not saying I have judgment for other people. Just for me, I never wanted to because I'm like, I already have enough going on here. Like, I can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, please don't mess with me.
My third eye's full.
I've already got too much coming in. Totally. So I agree.
I work every day on turning that down. Are you
Exactly. And it can be trained and used for good, right? But it's like, sometimes it can be overwhelming. I think there's a lot of intuitive people even now probably feeling a lot of things that come in and you don't always know what to do with it. So maybe like some grounding exercises are ways to stay connected, to get the information and to be with it and use it in a way that's really loving and supportive and feels good, right? Not so overwhelming. I don't know if you want to share anything on that.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of energies coming in from the center of our galaxy right now, which is what's causing a lot of awakenings and stuff on the planet. We're getting a really strong wave right now. And I know some people are feeling very ungrounded. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of strange headaches, strange fatigue, sudden, unexpected emotions. And there's a lot of tools out there for dealing with that. And a lot of this information is just readily available on the web, or there's lots of people like me that you can access who have really hardcore trained on this and know multiple different ways to do it so that you end up with a tool set that's really good for you and works every time.
Mm-hmm.
Or
awesome.
Virtually every time.
That's awesome. Are there any tools that you could share that would just be easy for somebody to do in the moment just so they can connect to their intuition and their third eye?
Okay, I'm looking for a universal solution. Okay.
Nice.
One moment.
Tap into the universal language of love. You'll find the solution. For reals.
Yeah, I think the one that's really kind of coming up for me is around emotions, especially when you get hit by an emotional whammy that you don't even know where it came from and now it's yours and you're in the middle of it. And it's a practice called noticing. And it's got 3 steps. Notice something, notice that you've noticed, and that what that's doing is that's actually taking you out of your ego into the observer state, which we just talked a little bit about. And then congratulate yourself, and that has to do with entrainment. So let's play, okay? The 3 of us.
Totally.
Okay. So we'll notice 2 things each and state it, and then one of those things will be external out in the room, and one of them will be inside of us. Okay. So I'll start the round.
Okay.
All right. I noticed that there's a very pretty and colorful flower arrangement sitting right above my screen, and I noticed that I noticed that. Good job, Angie.
So is your internal state, you notice that you noticed that, or we're just...
Yeah, go ahead and notice before we move to internal.
Okay.
Notice an external thing.
Okay, cool. All right. Do you want me to go?
Yes.
Okay, so I noticed the beautiful sunset above the ocean right now and all the different colors. And I noticed that. Good job, Abby.
And I notice like the sun setting outside, and it's this gorgeous like blue-gray color. So I noticed that I noticed that. Good job, Alyssa.
All right. All right. Internally, I am aware of my heart feeling very expansive. It's almost like it's wanting to reach out to your hearts and connect. And I noticed that I've noticed that. Good job, Angie.
So I notice my gut feeling like a little bit nervous, like what could come around the corner outside, what could happen, and I noticed that I noticed that. Good job, Abby.
And I've noticed that I am getting like waves of connection as we talk. So that's my insight. So I noticed that I noticed that. Good job, Alyssa.
All right. And so now that we've done that, that was very brief, extremely just an example. What do you notice that has shifted in you? I notice that I'm literally more aware of my body, my surroundings, myself in this. I'm suddenly more present. I'm a lot more present.
Yeah. I notice I feel a lot more peace. Yeah.
I notice, I don't know, like this feeling of connection around me, I think is what I feel.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing to do, because it forces the brain into a different category, right? And it just slows it down. It's a way to self-arrest when we're spinning out of control.
That's
And
cool.
so it's a good daily practice to build that sort of as a habit, to like do it a couple times a day, or just...
Yeah, or even, just sit and do it for a half an hour or 20 minutes. It's a good way to get to know yourself, your energy system, start feeling the energy around you inside of your field. We're all pretty familiar with our physical skin, but we have a lot of information out here in our auric field, in our biomagnetic field, and there's a plasma field, and there's different layers that do different things. So we know more about our body because we've seen schematics and we're trained in school than we know about the rest of us, and so this noticing practice helps you become more and more minutely aware, right? Instead of just caught in the head all the time.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So Alyssa, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, and this touches on, we talked on this a little bit before the call, but you just sort of mentioned the auric fields too. So like, how far a distance is that? What can happen? Can you bump into other people's auric fields? Like, what are some things around those?
So most people who are, well, let me start this way. Most people that are awakened, the auric field comes out to about their wrist. After energy work, like the energy work I do and other practitioners do, a lot of times it'll come out to the tips of the fingers or even beyond. Most people who probably wouldn't be watching this at all and have no interest in this whatsoever, know nothing about any of this, their auric field is usually very depleted. It's very close to the chest, like this, somewhere in here, right? People who have just awakened, it can be way out there. It can be 4 or 5 feet out there. And if you run into, like enlightened masters or people with mystery school knowledge, they can extend their field over a whole coliseum. So that's kind of a big question with a lot of different measurements inside of it.
That's cool. That's cool. And what is the frequency of love? I know you've told me this before, but I think it's so cool that it's scientifically measured.
It's 528 hertz. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's the frequency of love. And that's a tremendously healing frequency, because the human body, a healthy human body, vibrates between 68 and 72 hertz, right? Anger is a frequency that's around 50 hertz. Yeah. The sun is 126.22 hertz. Earth, the frequency of Earth itself, the Schumann frequency is 7.82 generally. It's been spiking a whole lot lately, though. It's been spiking clear up to 30 hertz. Different organs in our body vibrate at, varying frequencies, between, I think, 58 and 68, something like that.
Wow.
A cold sets in around, I want to say 62 hertz. No, it's more like 65 hertz. The flu sets in around 62 hertz. Epstein-Barr is like 58 hertz. Cancer sets in around 35 hertz. I may be forgetting some of these, but you get the idea.
Wow.
And tissue necrosis, death of the cell, is 30 hertz. So hertz are important.
Yeah.
Frequency is important. And that's why, the frequency of love can be so very healing. Because if you're working with somebody in which the frequencies are crashing and you give them love, it raises their frequency back up. And then you ask about what happens when we're in somebody else's auric field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to, let's see. This was actually just a lesson with a student recently. So let's say this is John's auric field, and John is awakening. Okay, his field is larger, it's expanding. It's running, let's say, 110 hertz. And this is Bob. And Bob's just, the guy next door. He's just, he's a nice kind of guy, right? He's running at about 70 hertz. Well, John and Bob get together, and there's this overlap of their field right here. This is called the vesica Pisces. But that expands out. It's not just a nice crisp line right there. It comes out. So John's 110 hertz is coming out into Bob's field, and Bob's 70 hertz is kind of coming in as well into John's field, right? So they're gonna, the two of them, the longer they're together, the more they're gonna get field integration, and they're gonna kind of come out at 90 hertz, something like that. The differential between the two of them. That's gonna be really great for Bob. Bob's gonna love talking with John. It always makes him feel really good about life. It's always a good day when he gets to talk to John. John's probably going to feel a little drained. He's probably going to be like, wow, I need to go do a little energy work on myself. And he's going to, get his frequency back up to, his comfort zone.
That sort of goes along with the saying that you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with too. It's sort of,
wow. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that saying, but absolutely, that's the metaphysics,
in more ways
behind it.
Yeah,
exactly.
The positivity, the negativity, and just like characteristics and traits and thoughts.
Exactly. So, we really ultimately want to hang out with people who make us feel really good about being ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. People who inspire us. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's what I love about the universal language of love, is when you're connecting to your heart and somebody else's heart, you're naturally going to bring out the highest, and then you're naturally going to see them. And I mean, I remember when I first started seeing energy when I was a kid, I'd go into a bus and I'd like see people's hearts, and I'd be like, whoa, they like have all this amazing stuff. And they'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm seeing you, but I didn't really like want to say much because I felt weird, but it's like, it felt good because it's like to see the truth of somebody as love and as yourself. It just obviously raises the vibration.
Yeah. And there's certain, levels of consciousness too, where, when 2 or more people are gathered together in love, it creates yet another energy form. Or maybe it just attracts the substructure of the universe more, but it just really radically expands is what it does. Yeah.
Yep, totally. Absolutely. Even like Alyssa and I doing this together, it's like you could feel the energy growing, and like people are sharing with us, like we're getting compliments about the energy being good. And I was like, really, I didn't even think about it, but we're just so connected in our heart. Like we don't really think about it, but it's fun.
Right.
So,
Yeah. We enjoy working together.
Yeah. And, now we have 3 of us, so that's a triad, and so, from that triad place, we could do something really big that sends, a specific frequency, out into the world. 3 people praying together for a 4th person can do miracles.
Wow, that's cool. I love that. Is there anything else you want to say about the universal language of love, how you've experienced it, how you've just kind of been like a product of it or beingness of it, like how you've really lived it?
Goodness,
It's a loaded question, I know.
yeah, I mean, there's so many there, there's this level where these incredible miracles take place, and not just healing, but when you live from a place of love, the world starts reaching out to you, and I mean everything in the world. And so, it's not uncommon for me to have, trees greet me, or bushes greet me, or flowers, or squirrels, or or rabbits, or deer, or and the list goes on. And that list goes on into things that most people probably won't believe even exist right now, but they do. They do. So it's like, there's a saying, I think, that all God's children are waiting to be seen by the eyes of man, right? And so when we have our hearts open, we actually begin to see the rest of creation, and not just as a useful object or a fluffy thing or a pretty butterfly, but literally the spirit and the consciousness and the experience it's having. We're lenses for the divine. The divine is experiencing Abbiness and Alyssaness and Anginess, but also butterflyness and robinness and pine treeness and crystalness and all of it, and it's all there wanting to connect back with all that is.
Yeah. Huh. So how do you trust your own connection to spirit, like to experience like Abbiness or Anginess or Listness, like everybody on the show, to experience their connection to spirit, so they feel themselves and they feel this higher connection of their spirit coming in? How do they trust their own internal guidance coming through?
I guess all I can do, because we're all so unique, is give you what worked for me, what gave me that trust and that level of sovereignty. Is I started with divination. I went and got a deck of angel oracle cards. I tried to get decks that had a wide version of things, and I would start each day by asking spirit, what is the most pertinent thing that's going to happen, or the most prominent thing that's going to happen today? And I would draw a card, and I would just set that card aside. I'd go live my day. I'd come back home again, and I would go, oh, right, that card. What? I can think of several things that happened today. Let's go see what the card said. And it always was something that happened. And it also gave me a sense of priority about what spirit was talking about as well, what spirit considered the most important point in the day versus necessarily what the ego did. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to kind of learn spirit's viewpoint as well. And so that, that then led into, I was probably doing at points divination 4 or 5 hours a day, where I'm just talking with spirit about everything and trying to learn everything. And the decks expanded. Pretty soon I have I don't even know, 8 decks, and I use all of them at once, right? Because I have all these different themes. They're just words. They're just like little mini dictionaries. And, divination works on the probability pot theory, or it's not a theory, it's how things work. And that is, if you have a large enough pot of potential probabilities, um, you can influence them to the knowledge which you already have inside. Is this like a connection that happens through divination to do that? And I also played a lot with that, with playing games, board games, and rolling dice. And I learned that, as long as there was enough double sixes in the probability pot, I could manifest double sixes, right? Or whatever. But there would be a point when the probability pot runs out of double sixes and every number comes up except that, right? So there's this thing about having a large enough pool of randomness to be able to get statistical probability, not statistical probability, because it's not that linear. It's just, okay, let me give you another example. The university recently did some psychic testing. I guess there's a psychic department at the university. And they pulled out, they chose some people to be subjects to try to influence a random number generator machine. So it produces like 3 billion numbers that can be selected every second, right? And the job was to try to energetically somehow influence the random number generator to produce either higher numbers or lower numbers. Right. Now, for a psychic, that's pretty easy to do because that's a huge probability pot. And so I got to play with that a lot. And needless to say, my scores were really fascinating and interesting, and they want me to come back and help them design experiments. So it's this idea of a large enough probability pot. So when I had enough card decks, I was able to have conversations of substance, and I was able to get, information about choices to make the next day and things that were going to come up and people that I was going, to meet. And I mixed that all in with remote viewing, and I was remote viewing the stock market for a while, and, all kinds of things. Like I was surrendered to spirit, but not blindly. We had to develop relationship, right? So I spent quite a few years playing with spirit, developing relationship. And so I now my faith is just super, super secure. So, if spirit guides me to it or directs me to it or says it in my head, it's just my marching orders now, because that's been proven.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And I've got 2 different questions from that. One would be for listeners, what's a good card or angel or oracle card set for them to start with if they wanted to start a practice like that?
Ooh, they've changed. There's so many of them out there. The best thing to do is go someplace where they sell a bunch of them,
Mm-hmm.
and stand there and just connect in and ask your higher self, what's a good starter deck for us? Like, what's a good cell phone for us?
Yeah.
Right? And see where you're drawn to and start there. And when you buy your deck, when you buy that deck, before you open it and start looking at all the cards, hold it in your hands and consecrate it, dedicate it to use by your higher self and your specific angels and guides of unconditional love to use, and no one else. Okay? You just want to lock in. Don't be giving that phone number out to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of telemarketers, which we also call attachments and entities.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, so this may relate, may not, but like in terms of card games. So like you're playing Cards Against Humanity, and it's where you pick up the card that was perfect for the question you just put a card down on. Or in networking, like we talk about the reticular activating system, where once you hear one thing, like that's all you see. Is that sort of similar or relate in some way?
Yeah, I think there is a connection to that. I haven't played that. I've heard of that, but I haven't played it. I was playing more fantasy Dungeons and Dragons kind of type
Yep.
adventure games, just somewhere where there was cards and dice involved in it, and then we
Yeah.
had a probability pot. And initially we were, playing against each other to win and throwing each other's dice. We were manifesting is what we were doing. And then we realized how easy that was to do. And so what we started doing was inviting a bunch of people, and we would like, telepathy and eye signals, pick out a person in the group that needed a win, right? They needed a win in life, and we would manifest their win for them. And that was so much more powerful than, than battling against each other to try to win, right? When we were doing it out of love for another person, it was a whole different game. It was really beautiful.
That's so fun. I love that. Like, I want to do that. That's fun. That's very cool.
That's almost the best game is, how can we help like create this good for someone else that they just needed, it makes their day.
Mm-hmm. And there's probably ways to do that, right? When you're walking down the street or you're going into a group setting or something, just asking your higher self, show me where I can help somebody, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's all on intention.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done on intention. If we just going about life with no particular intention, we're not particularly going to accomplish too much, But when we set intentions, we start the wheels of magic moving.
Mm-hmm.
The wheels of love are moving, right? Because especially when we're doing it out of love, now we're lubing the whole system.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Setting your intentions from the center of your heart. And maybe if everyone just wants to place their hand on their heart and feel their connection to the center of it, and then how we're connected and how we're all interconnected from this place of love. And maybe just bring to mind an intention that you have in the center of your heart, something you'd like to experience. And then place your other hand on your belly, a couple inches below your belly button. Just feel your connection to your gut, to your center, to your knowing. And just allow that body, mind, and spirit to totally unite. And again, feeling your intention at the center of your heart. And just energetically sharing it, like we can just allow it just to go into the stream of unconditional love and just let it be magnified. So even though we can't speak words right now, we can all share this energy. And just putting this out, because this is the universal language of love beyond words. And it magnifies as we do it together. So just allowing that to happen now. And then opening your eyes whenever you're ready. Just maybe reacquainting yourself with the world as it is right now from this place of your heart and starting to feel the world from your heart. And it'll take on a different tone. I love that 528 hertz frequency. It just changes. Your world changes around you when you see through the eyes of your heart. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, Angie, and just sharing your beautiful heart and generous spirit. And if people want to reach out to you, if there's like a website or a way that people can connect with you personally, there's also a beautiful video you did, which is where I originally saw you, about crystals. If you want to share that. I don't remember the title, but it's something around like centering or something.
Yeah, I think it was 7 ways to raise your frequency.
Yep.
Maybe was the name of that video.
Yep.
Yeah. And my website is www.crystalarrays, that's CRYSTALARRAYS.com, crystalarrays.com. And there is a free gift on there. Part of what I do is work with crystal energies. That's kind of the big work I do. It's very altering and shifting. And we have recorded part of a crystal array on there. It's a free download. And it's not a full array. It's I want to say about 12 minutes, but it's enough to shift you. You ladies should download that too as well. It's something super quick. Kick your feet up, close your eyes, listen to it. You'll, just like what we did, you'll go in one state and you'll come out in another state. And it's a really nice way to get a handle on a day or shift the energy of the day to something more positive. And there's a lot of other, really good stuff on that website as well. So yeah, www.crystalarays, ARRAYS.com.
It's beautiful. Wow.
And I do healings. I manufacture orgone generators. I do psychic readings. I do spiritual counseling, and I'm the founder of a mystery school. I have students, and I do take students on Zoom. So a lot of my, not a lot, but a decent percentage of my students are scattered across the world and across the U.S. So, and Zoom is how we connect up. And that's actually why I had a whiteboard so handy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so cool. Alyssa, did you want to add anything or share?
Actually, I just had one last question. We had been talking previously before the interview. You'd mentioned something about like sometimes you can pick up energy, like you're at a stoplight and you pick up someone else's energy. Like if you suddenly get this sudden change of emotion when you're out and about and you don't know why, what are some tips or tricks or techniques that could help with that?
Yeah, so a lot of it's having non-attachment, recognizing energies that are coming into your field and going, oh, that's not mine, go away. Right? But that does happen. We're listening to music, we're having a good time, we pull out of a stoplight, we notice our moods start crashing, and we just start thinking, really unpleasant thoughts. We pull away from the stoplight. A couple minutes later, our good mood has returned and we're doing good again. Well, if we could rewind that day and see who all had sat at the same place in their cars and what had happened in their lives, we might find somebody who's had a fight with their spouse and they're very concerned about whether their marriage is going to unravel, or somebody who got yelled at by their boss, or somebody who just got, a red slip. Do they still do red slips on jobs? I don't know, but a warning of some sort.
I haven't done corporate for so long. I don't know.
Or they or they just came from a doctor and got bad news, or a pet is sick, or any number of things. And as they sat there processing and thinking about that, remember I talked about the Akashic Records is all around us. Because of the power of that emotion that they were expressing, it's reprogrammed the energy in the air in that spot, which when we drive into, and that starts vibrating our frequency, and we start perceiving it, and that story plays out in whatever our own particular idiom is. And we get worried about, did I say the wrong thing to that person, or did I do this, or whatever. It just plays out in its own way, and it wasn't even our goo in the first place, right? So meditating and stillness practices help you to get where you can recognize the energy around you that's not yours. And once you can do that, a lot of times it's just as simple as saying, oh, that's not mine, go away, before my brain grabs onto it and starts writing stories about it, right?
Yeah.
Another thing, a quick simple thing that you can do if you do come home with a lot of goo and you don't know what to do with it, is do something like take a shower. And as you're taking a shower, visualize like golden energy coming into the shower head and just washing you, cleansing you, and that divine energy and all the low frequency goo coming out of your field and off of you and going down the drain. And or that could be a bath or whatever, but just release that in the water and then bless the water.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so beautiful.
Fabulous.
Well, is there any other phrase, like I always like to ask speakers, like footprint you want to leave on the world, like something the audience can remember to just take into their hearts and just be with and meditate on?
The more you move beyond yourself the more useful you become in the world. As long as we're just consumed kind of with ourselves, we're consumers, and we're just taking up food and space and oxygen, and we're not putting a lot back into the world. But when we get over ourselves, when we really start to love ourselves and heal ourselves, we start becoming very useful in the world. We can help others, right? So it might be a little cliche, but be the light you want to see in the world.
That's awesome. Yeah. My mom always used to say, how can I serve? Wake up saying, how can you serve?
And it's setting that intention. It's so powerful.
Aw, so beautiful, ladies. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Angie and Alyssa, and always such a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll all be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Many blessings, ladies. Thank you for having me back again.
You're
It was so
welcome.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.